Let's give the Lord a clap offering as we get started today. I want to welcome you to continuation of our public speaking class, and that is, this happens to be week number 9. We're going to have one more session before the end of the semester. It's been a good one, and it's been unique because we had to stagger the weeks in order to accommodate the class systematic theology. So every other week we're dealing with a different subject, and I think that's the first time we did it that way in the prophetic school, and I think it's working out all right for us to do it like that. All right, so please turn to page 100. Father, we give you thanks and praise for this class and for what you're going to inspire us to know about public speaking. We're asking, Lord, for your direction and guidance, your leadership. We pray that the Holy Spirit would help us and put it in the context of any life situation that we're going to have to face as a public speaker. Help us to be sensitive. Help us to learn. We give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Once again, let's welcome everyone. Thank God for another day. And we are almost done with the month of July. It is moving so fast. Next week is August. So here we go. All right, so I want us to take a look at the psychology of audiences. Whenever we talk about the psychology of something, what do you think of? What do you think of when you think of the psychology of something? Because there's actually a psychology of almost everything. And just like there is a philosophy of almost everything. So when you think of the psychology of audiences, what comes to your mind? Before we look at it and explore it, what comes to your mind?
The mind.
The mind.
The psyche of the mind.
The psyche of the mind.
The mindset of the audience.
The mindset of the audience. Okay. All right.
That's what I was saying. Study the audience to know, to think about how they are, how they might proceed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yes. So the audience comes with their own understanding, insight, biases, their own opinions. The audience comes already to you in a given situation with a psychology and a particular mindset as it relates to whatever you're going to be speaking on. One of the most interesting things to do is to help people psychologically push the pause button, where they are willing to say, okay, I'm going to approach this as though I don't know the subject. And that's important because they have the tendency of being biased and coming with biases that you have to somehow work through. The content, and I'm going to deal with that a little bit more today. There's nothing more important than substance in what you are speaking about. The substance of what you're speaking about is significant. And when you understand that you've prepared and you're looking at presenting the substance of a particular topic, it should be intriguing for your audience. It should be something that they may not have thought about. So being creative in picking a topic and working within that topic, the substance of what you're going to present is critical for your audience. Now, there's also a psychology that the speaker has about his or her audience. And it's important for you to understand that whenever you speak, wherever you speak, you bring a certain psychology, dynamic mindset to that particular audience, which means that they have to understand that what you're bringing to them could be your bias as well. So if you're dealing with their biases and you're dealing with your biases, how do you erase that? How do you put that on pause? How do you help them not to be biased? Anyone, what do you think?
You you look at, I mean, the audience is, there's a common denominator. There's something that you could agree on.
Good,
So you start working with that.
good, good.
And then if it's to inform, then you inform about that topic.
Yeah,
If it's to persuade, then you can use some of your point of views or how you feel about that subject.
yeah, that's good. That is good. Larry?
I believe that the speaker's research on whatever the topic would be would bring forth, well, the facts according to that topic.
Yes,
Especially when a group has preconceived ideas, imaginations, and thoughts about that topic. And once we present the facts, then we'll understand that, okay, well, this was wrong, I thought wrong. So it does that. The facts will change a person's mind,
yeah,
mindset.
yeah.
And that way we have a foundation of facts to walk with.
Sure, absolutely. And if the facts don't change their mindset, it will at least help them to look at it and consider it, because people could look at facts and not change
Right.
because of their bias.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
But-
And that's important to know. But you got to deal with the facts. And the substance of what you're presenting is going to be critical. Yes.
I agree with Deacon Larry, but I would also say bring the facts, but leave my opinion out,
Okay.
because that would be leaving the bias out.
Yes, I mean, we all have biases, and your opinion has a place.
Right.
It does have a place. But if it is to inform, you need to be able to clarify
Mhm.
all of that in your introduction. I'll come back to that. Go ahead, Carla.
I think if it's possible, if there's a way where you can make them understand how whatever it is that you're speaking about might pertain to, them, to everybody.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're teaching, not comparing the Bible, but when you're teaching something and you try to take it and make it pertain to life, everyday life.
Yes.
If you can try and make them understand how something might pertain to them in life, how they can benefit from it using an analogy like that, then maybe
Sure.
they may not be so biased. They might not be thinking just here and here. The fact that it can be brought in that maybe, I can use this here in life, maybe it can pertain to me some kind of way, then maybe they won't be so biased.
True. Okay. Yes. Betty.
But then what do you do? I going back to the Bible, I'm going to elaborate on whatever, but what do
Okay.
you do when you have an audience? And this is a question for you, Bishop, because
Okay.
what do you do when you have an audience, but then there's so many people that have come with preconceived judgment on on what you're teaching about, and they're like, I see what you do, but I need to know how inside how that is. When you're teaching a subject and somebody is there, it could be 2 or 3,
Yes.
it's not just one person, but their opinions and what they state is totally different from what you're teaching.
Yes. Yes.
They have already come to Bible studies.
Yeah.
They have already come to Bible studies, not open, but closed.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that's just like a regular audience.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
how
Some
do you,
people might come to debate with you.
Right.
about not-
Yeah.
or
learn.
debate, or
That's true.
Yeah.
be critical to the facts in the Bible? If we're coming to Bible studies
Yes.
and you're explaining the Bible, so it's on us to go and expound on it ourselves to make sure that what you're saying is in the right word with God.
Mhm.
But I mean, a lot of people haven't gotten that far.
True.
But if you're gonna come and sit and listen, then you should be able to receive something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The one thing you have to understand is that you have no control over that.
Okay.
You come in with the understanding that I cannot control their particular mindset or feelings or opinion. So you come in understanding that they're going to bring their own baggage.
Yes.
Okay.
They're going to bring their own opinion. Some opinions will be based on previous teachings.
Yes.
So let's keep it in a Bible study context.
Right.
All right, so you are going to be addressing an audience that have been taught that subject
Okay.
maybe years ago or maybe often in a particular denomination or setting.
Right.
So you as the speaker have to know that, and knowing your audience a lot has to do with getting information about them ahead of time. All right, so you actually study them before you meet them.
Right. Right.
You get information about them before you even present to them. And that can be done in almost any context, okay? All right, so I had a meeting yesterday with a Seventh-day Adventist pastor. They have a church in Baton Rouge, and they have a small congregation here in Lafayette. And they're wanting to come to Spirit of Liberty and to use our facility for their Bible study and maybe a service once a week. They meet on Saturdays. All right? So I have to know some biases or theological differences that we're going to have going in if I'm going to have a relationship with them. You follow what I'm saying?
Your Bible
Yes,
study,
I do.
or they want to
No,
teach
they
theirs?
actually want to move their congregation here when we're not having church.
Oh, so they want to use this.
They want to
church.
use this facility. They're already in this area.
So you're doing homework and investigation.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Yes.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
So they don't have a church, a building?
No,
have a
they
building.
don't. No, they don't. They're meeting somewhere,
Right.
but they're looking for another place to meet. All right. So if I'm addressing a Seventh-day Adventist audience, okay, and speaking of Africa, they have a large percentage of Seventh-day
What
Adventists
do they believe again?
in Africa.
You mentioned them already too.
Many times, I think, yeah. Primarily, they believe in the teaching of the law that says keep the Sabbath day holy. So they don't worship on Sunday.
Mm.
The Lord's Day.
That's holy.
They, yeah,
Worship is a holy thing, so why would
right. But it's based on doctrine.
Yeah.
It's based on understanding their
Yes.
doctrine.
Right.
Okay. And there's some truth to their doctrine.
Yes.
All right, so I'm using that as an example,
Right.
okay, because I'm getting to know them, I'm meeting with them, they're getting to know me, and we had a long talk yesterday. It was good, it was healthy. All right, so to get back to the audience, you have to know them, know their beliefs, their doctrine.
Yeah.
All right, so if I'm coming into a Seventh-day Adventist Bible study, it's not going to change me
Right.
in terms of what I believe theologically, but I need to know them so I can make sure that, number one, I don't discredit or disrespect,
Right.
because they did invite me. You see what I'm saying? So I want to respect where they are and respect their doctrine, and I need to be able to put it in a context that I too can agree with, because we can agree with almost any any denomination because there's some truth in all of them. Like you said, Betty, there's something we can agree upon.
Find that one thing.
Find that, okay? And so that's an example. But now let me rewind. If we are looking at the psychology of the audience, understanding their biases, their mindset, their tradition, that's another good word,
Yes.
okay? Let's understand that that exists. But what you're bringing to that context is going to be presented in a particular way, and it's critical in your introduction to say, my intention is not to in any way disagree with your doctrinal position. It is not my intention to deal with one particular perspective, but I would like to introduce to you this perspective. And often in preaching, I will say something like, I know you have not thought about it this way, because most people don't. All right, so you're bringing in a dimension of thinking. Psychology has to do with both thoughts and behavior. Are you following me? All right, so if that's true, then you understand that they have certain biases and opinions, but don't let that affect your opinion.
Right.
And whatever you are presenting, make sure that you say in your introduction that my intention is to reveal or to expose or to discover a new view on the subject of this or that. So if you lay it out in the beginning, in the introduction, then your audience can say, okay, I'm on pause now because I want to hear
Exactly.
that new perspective or that different approach to the same thing I already know.
Yeah.
And most people will be open to that because if they truly want to learn, they're going to want to listen. See.
That's kind of, what you just explained is kind of basically what lawyers do in their closing arguments.
Okay, okay. Yes, and I would say even in the opening
As well,
arguments.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that does happen.
Yeah.
It does happen, for sure.
Wow.
Okay, and speaking of lawyers, that is important, Jane, because depending on the evidence that they have to present, whatever their argument is have to be consistent with what they already know is going to be evidence in this case.
Right.
If they say something that is not evidential, that does not relate, that they don't have evidence for, then the judge or the prosecutor could say that is not relevant to this case.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that all of that has to be known before.
Wow. And
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Why
And,
you-
and the fact is that each, like with an attorney, they have to prepare
Oh, yeah.
and they have to research.
Oh my God.
So everything we're doing here,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's what they do.
Yes, no doubt, no doubt. Okay, all right, so now let's look at page 100. And your assignment was to review the section on the psychology of audiences. I'm going to ask you individually to share what you found, and then we're going to work backwards to the beginning of the chapter. So look at the first paragraph and also look at the margin and the term egocentrism. Okay? What do you do when you listen to a speech? What do you do? Sometimes you pay close attention, and other times you let your thoughts wander. People may be compelled to attend a speech, but no one can make them listen. The speaker must make the audience choose to pay attention. Highlight that if you haven't. Now, the speaker must make the audience choose to pay attention. That task, make note of this. The task of the speaker, the task of the speaker is to be creative enough in his or her introduction to the speech. Must be creative enough in his or her introduction to the speech in order to cause the audience to want to listen. All right, so what you're doing, you can pause there. You want to make the audience want to listen. So you see how critical that introduction is?
Yeah.
Because that's where it's going to happen, Benny.
So in the introduction,
Yes.
you're only stating what you're going to speak about.
Yes.
That's all you're stating.
Yeah, to a certain extent, that's all you're stating. But there are things that you can add to that clarifies what you're stating.
Okay. So
And remember the term, look in your notes from,
yes.
what is the term? Remember the term? Delimitation. Remember I had you to look up that term? See if you find it in your last class. Delimitation. All right, now that's going to make sense because that's what you're doing in your introduction. Read it, Carlette.
Choices made by the researcher which should be mentioned. They describe the boundaries that you have set for the study. This is the place to explain the things that you are not doing and why you have chosen not to do them.
There you go. All right, so the delimitation is actually covered in your introduction. You're giving the scope, that's a good word. Put it in your notes. You're giving the scope of what you're going to address in your introduction. That's what that is. All right, so that puts your audience to a certain extent at ease when it comes to their opinion, biases, mindset, because you've delimited what you're going to do. You've given the scope of your speech, and they must listen for that. And that is what you're trying to communicate. So for the audience to pay attention is critical. And the speaker must choose, the speaker must make the audience choose to pay attention. And put an asterisk next to that statement. Because you are really, really doing something psychological. You're doing something psychological.
It's taking a broad subject and narrowing it down to
Yes.
just one segment.
Yes.
Focus on that one particular thing.
Yes. Yes. But the key, Larry, in that is they don't know
Yeah, that's what you do. Yeah.
that you're making them make a choice.
Yeah.
You see, so that's what makes it the psychology of the audience.
Yeah.
You
So
see?
it's psychological because you're, I guess, influencing their mind.
Yes. Yes. You're influencing.
Without them knowing.
Yes, you're influencing them in terms of what you want them to hear.
So in other words, that's what then people then cope leaders do.
That what?
The people that start a cult,
The
cults,
Yeah, cults, yeah.
that's what they do.
Oh, yes.
They influence them without them knowing.
Yes. It's a little broader because there is a difference in influencing for someone to listen and
Influence.
brainwashing.
Yeah, for control.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so.
Totally different.
Yeah, that's a big difference
Leave that alone.
when you talk about cults.
Okay.
Yes, because you actually have to brainwash them in order for them to follow. Okay, it's also a psychological approach.
Mhm.
Brainwashing is definitely psychological. Go ahead, Betty.
I
Come.
was on the same page with Jane,
Okay.
because this is what Trump does.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Psychologically, he's telling you the same thing over and over, even though it's a lie. By you hearing it, because what you hear is what's going to resonate, and it's brainwashing
Yeah.
over and over,
Absolutely.
over and over.
Absolutely.
But that's different. I understand what you're saying.
Oh, yes, it's different. It's different. Motive is different.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next paragraph. Read that for me, Carlette. Even when people.
Even when people do pay attention, they don't process a speaker's message exactly as the speaker intends. Auditory perception is always selective. Every speech contains two messages, the one sent by the speaker and the one received by the listener.
Highlight that. In an earlier class, that last line, please.
Mhm.
Every speech contains two messages. The one sent by the speaker and the one received by the listener. And remember, in a previous class, I had you to write down the speaker and the receptor. Do you remember that? Okay. There's always two dynamics going on. And the one who determines the meaning is the receptor. Even if that's not what you meant, Carlette, they will arrive at a meaning. Your responsibility is going to be to help them understand that what they think is the truth is not the truth you're trying to present. Are you following me?
Yes.
All right, so that's important. So that last line is critical. Every speech contains two messages, the one sent by the speaker and the one received by the listener. Okay? Now, take the next paragraph, Deacon Larry.
As we saw in chapter 1, what a speaker says is filtered through a listener's frame of reference, the sum of her or his needs, interests, expectations, knowledge, and experience. As a result, we listen and respond to speeches not as they are, but as we are, or to borrow from Paul Simon's classic song, Hypocrisy. People hear what they want to hear and disregard the rest.
Okay, that is true.
Amen.
Yeah, that is true. All right, the critical statement in that paragraph is that in that second line, a listener's frame of reference. The sum of her or his needs, interests, expectations, knowledge, and experience. All right, so that is critical, okay? Because they come with that baggage, Betty.
Right.
They come with that baggage. Now think about it in the context of a church service.
God have mercy.
When you got 100 or 200 or more people, all right, that's coming to hear a speaker. They have all of that doctrinal, denominational biases.
Yeah.
So you have to be creative enough for them to put that on pause and hear where you're going. You follow me?
Yeah.
That is critical. Okay? Next paragraph. Betty, what do people want to hear?
Very simple. Very simple. Simply. They usually want to hear about things that are meaningful to them. People are egocentric.
All right, you should have already highlighted the meaning of the term egocentric, and what does that mean, Betty, in the margin?
The tendency of people to be concerned above all with their own values, beliefs, and well-being.
All right? So understand that it doesn't matter where you're speaking. It doesn't matter what the occasion is. When you walk in the room, know that it's full of biases and opinions, and it's egocentric. They want what they want. Okay? That is something you have to pay close attention to. But the psychology students is to somehow get past that and get to your topic. So you see, public speaking is a science and an art. It's a science in that there's things you have to learn and learn how to apply. And it's an art in that you learn how to actually deliver it and how to accomplish it. Questions, comments? Okay, join the crowd. You're not alone. Okay.
I agree with actually the whole entire topic because it touches on people from different backgrounds and so forth. But I realize that even though whatever the topic is, whatever a person is interested in, when they go in to listen to that speaker, they already, like you see, have their preconceived ideas about whatever what the topic is, and then they compare notes, and which is important. But I also realized too, used to go back when people the receptor of the message.
Yes.
I see that it's important to bring a recorder because when the person is taking notes, they'll sometimes miss the message because you'll say something.
Yes.
I'm started writing and you continue talking.
Yes.
And then I missed
Yes.
that critical statement.
That could happen. Yes.
That's a throw
It'll get thrown
throw
off.
your opinion off at the end of the speech.
Yeah, so we'll speech about when then I've only picked out and wrote down certain things, but I missed so much.
Mm-hmm. But that is why the speaker, Larry, has to be good at repetition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I repeat myself a lot.
Oh, yes.
For that very reason.
Oh, that's good.
And you'll notice that throughout the sermon, I'll restate my title.
Yeah.
Because somebody came in 30 minutes after I originally announced it.
Right.
And so here's somebody late for church, okay? And they're sitting down, the whole audience is into the message. And here they are saying, I wonder what they
Yes.
I wonder what Bishop is preaching about.
Yes.
They seem to be all into this, But that's why, what you said, Colette.
You should have got your own time.
Exactly. All right. Okay, but that's why repetition is an art too. Learning how to repeat yourself in different ways. Okay, that's an art. So it happens, Larry. People will do that, and every 3 minutes, as I mentioned before, people psychologically go somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, that is a fact.
Yeah.
That people and their attention span will vary. Okay.
Yeah, because
All right.
you can say one, make a statement, and that mind will drift on. That happened to me.
Because she's visual, she says that. So, imagine if you give an analogy or something, making a speech, and all of a sudden she's imagining that and not hearing the next things that you're saying.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
So that
You can get preoccupied
Yes.
with that.
So,
That can happen.
so that's how people can drift off, like you said,
Sure.
every 3 minutes.
Every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every 3 minutes.
Yes, I am very.
I know, that's why I was
Yeah.
thinking about
Yes,
That's why things, when I look at when people say things, they think I'm not listening. I really am, but I'm picturing it.
absolutely.
Okay.
You know?
Yes, yes.
It just, I don't know, and I try so much not to do that.
Well,
What about
it
Bishop?
has its value, Betty,
Yes.
for you to understand.
Yes.
You're visual,
it.
you're visual.
Your way of processing.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's my question.
Yeah.
Because with me, a lot of times people think I'm not paying attention because I'm writing, but that's the only way I can store it in my brain sometimes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not that I'm ignoring the speaker, but I'm trying to store what I'm hearing
Sure.
in my brain, like physically.
absolutely.
Right.
Yes, and for you, that is not as important as being visual. For you, you want to comprehend.
Yes.
So comprehension is important to you, whereas getting a visual understanding for Betty is
Right.
different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
It's sometimes strange too, though.
Okay.
You know, like we're in the Bible and we're in this time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're speaking, okay, if you speak about Paul or you speak about Moses, or
Yeah.
I can see them.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
it's like when you're talking, I could see them doing that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know.
You know when that visual comes to me, like what you were talking? When I'm in prayer, I can literally see what God is showing me.
Okay.
You know, if I go into prayer and God will show me someone on the street that has been abused, I can literally see them and feel it.
That's all right. That's all right.
And then people are think, well, she's crying in prayer, but it's not really me. It's what God is showing me.
Sure. Well, let me share with you, I don't remember when, but way back somewhere, maybe in my 20s, I forget when it happened, but someone asked me one time, I don't remember who, but someone asked me, are your dreams in color?
Okay. All right. I
Do
will-
you dream in color?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I do. I
For me, I dream in color all the time.
okay.
Okay? But just think about it. That's something you don't necessarily
Pay
attention to.
Yes.
Okay, so the next time you have a dream, see if it's in color. Okay, okay.
Oh my God.
When we was talking about the visual aspect and writing too, I'm learning how to write it like
Good,
I'm
good.
learning because it's good to do both.
Sure.
Because even though I see it right now, I want to be able to remember.
Right. And go back to your
Yes,
notes
yes.
to be able to review.
And even when you say something and we know it's in notes already that we had, I'll write it again.
Oh, me too.
It's not a bad thing to.
That's true.
And have it in as many places as
that-
we can.
that's right. And that also is another way of learning it.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, repetition is the mother of wisdom. So that's exactly what you're doing. All right, let's conclude this paragraph. Continue, Betty. Where are you? We dealt with egocentrism. Continue.
They pay close attention to messages that affect their own values, beliefs, and well-being.
Yes.
Listeners approach speeches with one question uttermost in mind.
Highlight that. Continue.
Why is this important to me?
There you go. Why is this important to me? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Betty.
As Harry Henderson Fosdick, the great preacher, once said, there is nothing that people are so interested in as themselves, their own problems, and the way to solve them. That fact is the primary starting point of all successful public speaking.
All right, so highlight that. Now you know Fosdick is a preacher, and he mentions that there's nothing that people are so interested in as themselves and their own problems. And so that's why it's important in sermon preparation and in public speaking that you keep your messages practical, because everybody is dealing with that some way or another.
Right.
You have to keep it practical. And when you keep it practical, you're dealing with it from a perspective of life. And so as you deal with whatever you're dealing with as a public speaker, you want to make sure that it's practical so they can identify with it in their own context. Because at some point, they are dealing with it. You follow me? You may not know to what extent they're dealing with it or what's really going on, but they're dealing with it.
Right.
It's you've heard me mention this. I did on Thursday and I did on Sunday. It's called the human condition. When we talk about the human condition, whatever you're talking about is unique to every human being. It's the human condition. We're all concerned about usually the same thing, some way or another. All right? Question, comment. Betty,
Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Since I've been coming to class 3.5 years, something like that, whatever, I'm learning one thing, Bishop, and that is to me the most important thing.
Okay.
And when you talking or speaking, whether it's a speech or whatever, it's your tone.
Yes. Yes.
Some people can have a good message, but it's the tone and the approach they use. It's in the approach, the tone.
Yes.
Because even though they mean well, you can offend somebody with your tone where they could cease to even want to listen to you, even
So
though
true.
they're saying the right thing, but the way they're presenting it to you, it's like sometimes you can demean them.
For sure. For sure.
Or yes.
That's critical.
And that, as a Christian, we are supposed to be compassionate.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the way we speak to one another should represent that.
For sure. For sure. That is an art as well, Betty, to be able to perfect that and be sensitive to that at all times.
Yes.
Not only in a public speaking setting,
Yes.
but in every communication kind of setting.
Right.
Whoever you're talking to.
Yes.
I deal with that often in people I mentor. And I let them know the way you say something
Yes.
is critical. The
What
way
you're
you say
saying
it.
is what you will receive. And
Exactly.
the reason why I say that is when I was bringing up my son, the Lord dealt with me on that. The Lord dealt with me about the hollering, stop that hollering.
Oh, yeah.
Because what you're sending out is why he's responding to you that way.
That's true.
So when I started, as I listened to God, I was just learning how to hear from God at that time.
For sure.
And when I started talking to him in a softer tone,
Yes.
I got a better response, and I got him to do what I wanted him to do.
There it is. Yes.
Yeah,
Because-
but the vibes I was sending out is what I was receiving back.
Yes, but that tone could be intimidating for a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Carlette, you had a comment. Question.
Why is this important to me, attitude that I have,
Yeah,
it's really, it's because I don't like my time wasted.
there you go.
Or I'd rather go waste time doing something I want to do, even if it's a waste of time.
Yes.
So I think it's important that you said in the beginning, in the introduction, that
Yes.
you captivate your audience.
Yes.
Because if you can get me to listen then I might be able to see why this is important to me. I've seen myself lost in somebody speaking about something, and from the very beginning is boring, and I don't want to.
Absolutely.
Later on in the middle, so now I'm daydreaming. I'm somewhere else. I'm not even where I'm sitting. I'm somewhere else.
Yes.
And I hear everybody laughing and people saying, "Ooh, this is good." Now I want to know what's going on, and I start hearing people, because we go to a lot of these at City Hall. We go back to work, and I start hearing people talking about stuff. And now I'm sitting down for them to explain it to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I need to know this and but I didn't know that before because in the beginning,
They lost you.
they lost me and I'm one, I need to be, it's hard for me to be, to keep my interest
Yes.
in things.
Your
you know,
attention.
Yes, and then I'll lose focus quickly like that.
Sure.
So for me, I get bored easy. So I have to be, I guess like little kids, you know, you gotta keep me busy. You know, I'm working, I stopped coloring my hair when I can work. I learned how to stop doing that, but I work on those things a little bit and I'm trying to learn how to be a better listener.
That's good.
But I found myself one day trying to do that with somebody who was talking and it was irritating. Because
Okay.
I'm saying to myself, where is this going? And then I got irritated with myself because I heard myself say, where is this going? I'm like, you're messing up already. So I'm trying to work on that, but I see now because of how I respond, how important it is to captivate the attention of the audience
No doubt.
from the beginning.
Yeah, no doubt. That introduction is important. The delimitation is
Right.
important.
Right.
The scope is important.
Mhm.
All right, and tone, Betty, it's
Yes,
important
it
in the
But
communication
it's true.
process.
What you said, because a child will hear you screaming and that's all they're gonna remember is that you screamed at them.
Yes,
Even though what you told them makes sense. They
yes,
need to know that they're not gonna hear what you said, it's just how you
that's
said
right,
it.
that's right.
So-
But even as an adult,
Yes,
even
yes.
as anybody, if I go to talk to somebody or say something, and the way they respond to me is just cut and dry,
Yes,
it takes me a while to get my bearings.
sure,
Okay.
sure.
Because before I can even say, I can't speak after that because I refuse to, because what I'm thinking is not good.
Mhm.
No, you just know somebody disrespected you, but you
Right.
heard not a word that they said.
Exactly.
It's just a
But
tone.
then it's not the fact that they weren't right,
Sure,
it's the way they spoke to me.
yes.
Right.
Now you're processing that
That,
and
yes.
those emotions.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Mhm.
I'm with you.
So how am I gonna listen, or I'm missing it because I'm dealing with what's going on inside of me,
Right.
which is selfish,
Mhm. Mhm.
all those emotions.
Yes, yes.
So but the scope of it is what we were really speaking about.
There you go. Yes.
That's what it is, and then it takes a while to get back to
It
that.
takes a while to get back to that. And there's a term, I think I may have mentioned it in this class before. There is a word for that, Betty, when that happens. It's called communication blockers.
Right.
Yeah.
A communication blocker is when someone says something disrespectful or say something that is offensive or say something in a tone that is, not inviting. That becomes a communication blocker.
Right.
That communication blocker basically is blocking
Yes,
the process of you and that person
right,
communicating.
yes.
It's called communication
But you know,
blockers.
I just recently had a talk with somebody who's going through some stuff, and I'm trying to, give encouraging words. And what came back at me was something kind of, I guess, rebellious.
Okay.
Pretty much thrown at me that I'm not in their situation.
Yeah.
So, but they didn't say it that way, but they threw
Sounds
my
like
life
that
at
fan
me.
was talking.
Yes, exactly. They threw my life at me as compared to theirs.
Yes.
So
yeah.
in my head, what I was thinking, I was like, I know you didn't just say this, and I'm not gonna say what else I was thinking. But I stayed calm and I still talked. And then the only thing I told him was, I said, I'm not gonna talk to you while you're like this.
Yeah.
I said, I'll come back, I'll talk to you when you're ready to listen. But that was not easy
Sure.
to do because of what was said.
Sure.
To me, it was not easy at all, and I could have closed up and blocked all of that off and just, but I did, just respond and say that, but that is not an easy thing to do. That was really
Oh,
hard.
no.
That comes from
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Especially
Because I,
Yes.
to relate to that, I was flat out cussed out at work
Yeah.
for no reason. And the only thing I could tell her was, sweetie, I'm sorry if I offended you. I want you to forgive me. And I'm
And,
There you
Later
go.
on, she came back and said, Miss Jane, I was really sorry. I was wrong.
Yeah.
But at one time, I would be like ready to fight.
Of course.
Yeah.
You'd
Let's
be all
get it
in.
on, buy Super One, call it out.
Yeah. Yeah. In other words, you would get it off your chest.
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, but then you also know too, and you also have to look at yourself too as growing.
Well, yeah,
You're
yeah, I'm growing with that.
God is
That's what I'm saying,
elevating
because
you.
that would not have been my response.
Mine either.
Mhm.
Mine
That's
is,
God
and
that
I don't
brought me
care.
So
And
that's something you need to celebrate. I'm
Exactly.
not the person I used to be.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what
yes.
God is revealing, because at one
Yeah.
point, I don't care if it was in church, I don't care where it was.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Yes.
You would
Yes.
think, yeah.
You know,
Yes.
because,
Yes.
'Cause
That's
then-
kind of scary, but that's true.
Yeah,
it's the truth. And
It's the
see, those past images will run through you.
Oh, yes.
But they're running, they're not staying
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
you know?
Thank God.
Thank God.
Yes, indeed,
Yeah.
I thank God, and that's another thing that all of us need to be grateful for.
Sure.
Because that's the proof that
Yes.
you're growing.
Yes, for sure.
And you
it's
know,
right there.
sometimes I'll be like, Lord, now, why didn't they come at me like this before you came for me? Because, you know, you just be wishing. Then I just did it.
As cynical,
Sometimes they make you feel like that, and that's why I keep remembering that you said the hardest thing to deal with in your walk with Christ is
Yes.
Absolutely.
every time I know I'm going somewhere around people, I'm praying before I go.
Yeah,
You
yeah, that's a
You
good
never
thing.
know. You
That's
never
a good
know.
thing.
No, Lord have mercy.
They will scratch you the wrong way.
Oh,
Sometimes
yes.
you gotta pray while you're around them,
That's
while
true.
you're in their presence.
That is true.
You know, like the chief secretary told me something kind of off one day, and my biggest thing is I don't like nobody disrespecting me. And I remember when she said it, I turned around to walk away. When she said it, I stopped in my tracks. And I saw myself slap her 3 times, like real famous. But I stopped in my tracks, and I was like, girl, keep moving. Because you know you're going to feel bad if you tell her something.
No doubt about
And
it.
you know you're going to have to deal with God.
Sure.
So I walked away. And as soon as I started walking away, I heard her say, you stupid. You going to let her talk to you like that? And then immediately I smiled. I said, well, that's what God, you know, what Jesus would do. So I'm just going to walk away
Just walk
and leave it
away.
alone.
Yes.
So I was happy about that.
Sure.
But like, you know, it took a couple of days still for me to get it off my mind, but I was still happy that I did the right thing.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's when I said, well, that humble pie does not taste good at all.
That's true.
But I'm thankful for that because this was at work. When we went in Lafayette, all the same one girl would have heard my mouth before.
Oh,
And I responded the way I normally would. And then I'd have felt like a fool. Because
Sure.
I've been embarrassed about the way I've reacted to things.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
That's
yes. And that doesn't feel good either.
No.
But you see, like when we started this class,
Hmm.
I really didn't want it.
Okay.
And I prayed and prayed and prayed. And every time I came in this class, it got better and better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I had to pray for this class.
I agree. And there'll be others like that
Now,
too.
yeah, but
That's what I
you
said. The
see-
practical classes, I'd be like, why can't you stick to the business
Yes,
classes?
me too.
But then you realize why you need this.
Yes.
You need
And-
these classes along the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's all spiritual.
Yes,
Exactly.
It can be put in a
And you
spiritual
can't
context.
just learn the Bible, but then you don't know how to get up and then do what with it. How
Exactly.
do you deliver? How do you
Exactly.
deliver the message? So,
Exactly.
and then I learned your key is critical thinking. Everything
Yeah, she
that
loves that. Those words.
is critical thinking. That's what I say it all the time. I said it's not for you to trip out about. It's for you to start thinking out the box.
Yes.
You don't have to stay in a box.
Yes. Yes. All right, let's look at the last paragraph.
We are the box now.
Yes.
But everything is working for his good.
Sure.
Yes.
What do the psychological principles mean to you as a speaker? First, they mean your listeners will hear and judge what you say on the basis of what they already know and believe. All right, so that was foundational when we started the class today.
Yes.
I said how important it is for the speaker to know that the audience has a bias already. Second, they mean you must relate your message to your listeners. Show how it pertains to them Explain why they should care about it as much as you do. Here's an example. All right, now I want you to go to your assignment, and is there anything that we did not cover in the psychological part that is in your assignment notes? What did you have to say about the psychology of the audience? Go ahead, Carla.
I just had a comment, or I guess opinion or whatever, where it's important about being a good listener and a good speaker.
Yes.
There's the responsibility on both parts.
Absolutely.
A good listener should be very attentive, even if you find yourself uninterested in doing so, you're able to take advantage of the opportunity to learn something new.
Right.
That's how I try to look at things that I'm not interested in. I'm saying, well, this is something new.
Yes.
You know, I don't have to always want what, have what I want.
Sure.
And it may, maybe something useful later on in life. And I also believe that the speaker must, like we learn, must know their audience so they're able to formulate the best possible way to deliver their speech and also to make the correct choices as to what information they'll speak about.
Okay.
That's really what I got as a whole out of this.
Okay, so that the essence of what you got out of it, for the most part, is being a good listener.
A good listener, there's
Yeah.
responsibilities, and because that's my issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Larry, what did you get, if anything, different from what we covered?
I pretty much agree with everything that was from the topic, but also I realized that even when if it's a familiar topic, when the speaker is presenting the message, I know if it's something that interests me, sometimes I'll drift in a way to where I'll finish it, let's say, wanted to, what I experienced.
Yes, right.
I
Yes.
find out being able to, and I'm learning to just shut that down and just focus on the scope of what the speaker is actually presenting.
Sure. Gotcha. All right. Betty, anything different from yours?
Not really, but when reading the psyche and the audience,
Yes.
it helped me in a sense to not just look at myself as the speaker, but also understand the listener.
That's good. That's good.
And then I took the listener's point of view
Yes.
and tried to see what was in me as a listener, what I need to improve on when I listen to the speaker.
That's
But
good.
everything is listening.
Yes. 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 But listening from two different
Different
perspectives.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right, Jane?
Y'all covered pretty much everything I had, and like Betty said, to me, it was all about the listening.
Okay.
Because if I can bring it to them on a perspective where they can understand and I can keep their attention.
Sure.
Because as a listener for me, I'm going to listen to you on Thursday night and I'm going to listen to you on Sunday morning. But I'm going to meditate on that all week, and if
Yes.
I have anything in doubt, I'm coming back to this.
Yes. Coming back. Yeah. Going
I'm
back to
come
the
back
word.
and dig
Yes.
for my, because Mary says, you just have a spiritual shovel. You just go to the Bible and start digging. But as y'all was talking, I Googled, what I can do to correct me as
Okay.
a listener.
Okay.
And I Googled that scripture dealing with be quick to listen and slow to speak.
Okay.
Now, if I can meditate on that before I come to church, if I can meditate on that before
That's
I go
good.
to a speech,
Yes. Yes.
then that will prepare my spirit to receive.
Yes. That's a biblical concept.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly what you're saying, Carla. It's a practical course, but there's a biblical context for public speaking.
Right.
Quick to listen.
Quick to
Slow
listen.
to
That's in
speak.
James 1 and,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
19.
Yes.
So
There it is.
that's one way of preparing me. And I could also pray for my listeners before I bring to prepare this.
That's true.
Present it.
That's true.
Pray that God would bring them there with a heart of expectation.
That's right. That's right. Now, this chapter begins with a picture of President Barack Obama, who, of course, was an excellent public speaker. All right? And the chapter starts with analyzing the audience. What we've been doing so far is just that. That's all a part of the psychology. But analyzing the audience has components. And I've listed a few things that we will, that the chapter covers. The audience centeredness, the demographics of the audience analysis, the situational audience analysis, disposition toward the topic, disposition toward the occasion, and adapting to the audience. All right, so there's several aspects of it. I think that the psychology section, for the most part, encapsulates all of that. You follow me?
Yeah.
So look at page 97, all right? And I'll give you some teaching points. When President Barack Obama stepped to the lectern in Tucson, Arizona, on January 12, 2011, the eyes of the nation were upon him. Now that's pretty intimidating when you know the nation is what? Listening, watching, and millions, okay, can be watching at one time. Only 4 days earlier, 19 people had been gunned down at a grocery store during an open meeting for Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. I remember that incident. Although Gifford survived, 6 people were killed. In the wake of this tragedy, Obama knew he had to reach multiple audiences, including families of the victims, residents of Arizona, and Americans in general. All right? So notice his audience was not just people from Arizona. All right? His audience included a much broader audience. He spent the first part of his speech eulogizing victims of the shooting. Why would you think he would start there?
Because he would grab, everybody's attention was already on that.
Because that incident, regardless of what he was going to say that day, the world would have been interested in that topic. So in other words, he got the audience from the beginning. Because that's something they would be sensitive to. All right? And that is another way of being able to capture your audience. So he started out his speech with eulogizing victims of the shooting. Then he turned to the need for reasoned public discourse that instead of placing blame and pointing fingers would remind Americans of all the ways our hopes and dreams are bound together. He ended by referring to Christiana Taylor Greene, a 9-year-old girl who had been killed at the shooting. I want our democracy, he says, and I quote, to be as good as she imagined it, Obama stated. All of us, and I quote, we should do everything we can to make sure this country lives up to our children's expectations. All right? So now, the connect message in this, highlighted if you don't have it already. View an excerpt from Barack Obama's speech of January 12th in the outline media library for this chapter. So that's something that could be done as a follow-up from the chapter. The speech garnered almost universal praise. Historian Gary Willis called it Obama's finest hour. Others deemed it splendid, inspirational, and a remarkable display of oratory. Even Obama's critics praised the speech as courageous, genuine, and pitch perfect for the nation. All right? So you have to understand, and write this down. This is something we haven't covered yet. You have to understand as a speaker that you are being evaluated even when you don't want to be. A speaker is being evaluated even when he or she doesn't want to be. People are evaluating what you are saying. they are going to have an opinion about what you're saying. So understand that it's happening, whether you're conscious of it or not, you're being evaluated. And that happens all the time. All right, so you can see what kind of response Obama got. And if you would ask President Obama, did you think they would think that speech was splendid? He would probably say, man, it was just something I had to say. You know, it was just relevant to the time. But they thought it was his finest hour. You would be surprised how people think and how you think differently. You might think that your speech was just okay, but to them, it was remarkable.
Right.
Go ahead, Carla.
So it's kind of like him speaking and he's relaying something to people.
Yeah,
But instead of them just listening to what he's saying, they were really watching and paying attention to how he presented the speech.
sure.
Because they talked about how a remarkable display of oratory. They were looking probably at the words he chose and so, like you said, evaluating him.
Absolutely.
It's almost like you gotta be careful. You don't know when people are watching. You don't think that they're watching everything.
Right.
That you, so it's kind of like being a Christian. You know,
Sure.
you're just going about living everyday life, but because people know you're a Christian.
Yes.
Because people know you're a pastor.
Yes.
They're watching everything you
Everything you do, say, act.
do. And you never know. Like, I think about Apostle Oscar, the things that he was saying about the team, the way he called us.
Yeah,
And I'm like, wow, I didn't know he was really paying attention to all of that. You would never know.
that's true.
You know, we didn't know that. Me and Shawana was sitting out watching you preach. We had no idea he would come up and mention.
Yes.
To me, that was just normal. You know, it was
Right.
something we wanted to do, but he was really paying attention to that apparently.
Exactly. Exactly. So that you're under a microscope
Yeah.
as a public speaker. You're under a microscope. Then
And when Barack Obama was giving that speech, I was just looking at him.
okay.
I didn't hear nothing he was saying. I liked his coat. I thought that coat was the bomb. The way he walked, the way he presented
we ever had, right?
You know, I was looking at it not to. I mean, I was visual. I was just looking.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's my president.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
And how, and what I was hearing was he had to be better.
Mm-hmm.
He was better.
Mm-hmm.
He was good at, like the kids say, you know?
Yeah.
And everything he did was just, you know, bam, bam, bam.
Right.
You know, and I was proud.
That's a good way of explaining it, Betty. And the truth is, everybody is evaluating you, even in things you're not expecting them to.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Do you remember the assignment I gave you of the woman speaker?
Yeah.
What did you talk about?
We
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, they probably thought she was so cute when she put those boots on.
Yeah.
I
had
remember
no
those boots.
idea.
I had them.
Oh, those boots.
Yeah, and I could tell you what year.
Okay.
You know our first trip to South Africa?
Yes.
When we, I guess we went up sometime during the service to give an offering.
Yeah.
And then later on, one of the girls who now I'm really close with, but she just commented on, you know, on one of my Facebook posts about how she said she cried so much. Just that one thing she said when she saw us going up to give an offering. And she said it just touched me so much. She said I just cried, I broke down in tears. And so I'm saying to myself, so then what do they think of us? Or maybe because we wasn't, you know, members of that church, maybe she didn't expect that. You don't know what was going on in her
Sure.
mind. But I told the group that night, and I said, look at this post. I said, look at what she wrote to me. So I said, y'all be very careful of what y'all doing. I said, because they are watching
They're
us,
watching.
apparently. And I never thought that was a big deal. We
Absolutely.
just getting up and doing what you do in a, you know, during a service.
Absolutely.
So,
So that means they will also be paying attention to whether you are paying attention,
apparently so.
whether you're
Yes.
actually participating in the
Participating,
service,
anything.
whether you have just kind of,
Unpacked.
you know, disconnected, where
Right.
you're not really into it.
Mhm.
They're watching all of that.
Everything.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Dick Elaine.
I would just add to that even with Barack Obama, and with even all of us, you as being a speaker, we are truly, we are being evaluated by the nation of who with.
Yes.
It's not only the clothes we wear, but what's coming out of our mouth. What few statement words coming out of our mouth, or how are we looking? Because, you know, even after the president's speech, you got Fox News, CNN,
Okay.
all these people.
And they're all giving a different perspective.
Perspective. And
Yes.
your comedy shows, you know, they
Oh, Lord,
they're all
mercy.
doing
They
it.
never
Yeah.
So there's total evaluation of every aspect of the speaker.
That's right. That's right. And the thing about it is that, as I mentioned, President Barack Obama probably didn't think of his speech as being that impactful.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? You as a speaker, you're not thinking about how they are thinking. But the most important thing as a public speaker is being prepared and making sure that you have explained the scope of what you're going to cover. And when you do that, it doesn't matter what they think, feel, or see, because you've done your job.
Right.
You see?
I have a question, Bishop.
Yes.
Do they have people that write speeches for someone else to say?
All the time.
Speak-
They're speech writers. Yes. Yes.
What's the point in that?
The point in that basically is that a speech writer is trained in being able to touch on keywords and express key points. So if a person is not a good public speaker, they need a speechwriter.
Okay,
Oh yeah, for sure. They need a speechwriter, especially when it comes to content. You know, to make sure is if you are a public servant like a president, governor, mayor, or whatever,
President
you want.
Trump would need one.
Yeah, trust me, he
You need
has one.
4 or 5.
No, he has no. He don't write his own speeches.
But he,
Trust me.
I-
Whenever he is
you can
speaking,
see him reading.
yeah, whenever he is speaking and expressing his opinion, he's never reading. It's
Yeah.
off the cuff.
Yeah.
That is just
Just him.
Trump. Okay, and everybody knows that
That's Trump.
they're waiting for him to stop watching the teleprompter or stop reading because they know once he stops, they gonna hear the real Trump.
Yeah.
Because what he's reading is what somebody wrote.
Okay.
It was a speechwriter. And
Yeah.
I would say it's probably 99.9% of the time when Trump speaks, it's not him.
Thank God.
It's a speechwriter. Okay.
Now those texts, those
Tweets.
Tweets. Yeah.
that's him.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right, now we're going to cover a couple more points, and I'm going to dismiss about 15 minutes early
Yes.
because of the funeral. Yes, Colin, comment.
Colin need to behave, Bishop. Sorry, she just needs to behave.
Oh, really? Okay, lay hands on it, Jane. Okay. All right. Now, audience-centeredness. Maybe that's a phrase you haven't heard before, but you should put it in your notes and highlight the margin. Audience-centeredness. What is that? Keeping the audience foremost in mind at every step of speech, preparation, and presentation. All right, so audience-centeredness means that everything you are preparing and what you want to speak has the audience in mind. That is audience-centered, all right? As a theologian, students, as a professor, as a pastor, and as a theologian, I try to keep everything Christocentric. I try to bring things back to Christ, all right? So the audience and audience-centeredness is keeping everything you do, watch this, from preparation to conclusion. Note that. From preparation to delivery to the conclusion of your speech, it's all based on what you want your audience to get. From preparation to delivery to the conclusion of your speech, you want it to be focused on the audience. Okay? So that is definitely critical. Definitely critical. Audience-centeredness. All right, look at the bottom of the page, and here's another term that you would not necessarily think of in public speaking: identification. A process in which speakers seek to create a bond with the audience by emphasizing common values, goals, and experiences. All right, put that in your notes. I'll tell you why. Identification. That is critical in public speaking because you are going through a process to seek to create a bond with the audience. Emphasizing common values, goals, and experiences. All right? Now, in the recent conference that I attended in Chicago, the chief apostle, Apostle Mark Hinton, was the last speaker of the conference. But it doesn't matter whether it's the end of the conference or the beginning of the conference, or whether it's a seminar I did, or whether it was a seminar PG Jr. did, or whether it was a seminar Dr. Dacus did. Those people that were teaching with me, every single time they got up, including me, they said something about the chief apostle.
Sure did.
Every time. Every time. And that's not by accident. Because if you want to reach that audience, talk about the chief apostle. You got it?
You got it. Makes sense.
You see? And that is the reason why. But you'll find something in every audience that is important to them. And it's up to you to find out what that is. And create a bond with them. Okay? So if I'm preaching in, let's say, Carlette, in Jamestown, around Jamestown, you know where Jamestown is in South Africa, where Maurice them live. Yeah, yeah. It's Jamestown, and it is Stellenbosch.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Stellenbosch.
Yeah, they live in Stellenbosch,
I didn't know
but
about
the Jamestown community is right next to Stellenbosch, and so whenever you're speaking to a predominantly colored audience in South Africa, you want to say something in their language, and you got it. Okay? Whatever that is, if it's just hello, buy your donkey, that's what it means.
I've often thought about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like buy a donkey. Okay. Yes.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you. Oh, so that's what it.
The word in the word in Afrikaans is buy your donkey.
That's hello.
That's hello.
In their language.
Yeah, or it's almost like it could possibly mean something else. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. In most cases, it is responding to something that they did. You know. So thank you for inviting me today. You know, and when that happens, language is a critical element in bonding with people.
Right.
Whatever words you can find in their language to bond with them is to your advantage, and that's called identification. Go ahead, Carla.
I've seen that with the friends that I chat with. in South Africa.
Yes.
They'll send me messages, but of course they speak English.
They speak English.
But
Yeah.
I've responded back in their language, and it's like they just blow up with excitement.
Isn't that something?
And so I have one of them because of that. Well, two of them now they're always trying to teach me the language.
Yes.
But they were so excited because they didn't expect that. But
Exactly.
It was something that I started doing, and then the excitement, I could feel it in the text message. It's like they went crazy.
Yes,
When I did
yes,
that.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. And if you notice, President Barack Obama did that everywhere he went. Everywhere he spoke, in any, whatever country it was, he would start out with either a phrase, a word, or something in their language.
Wow.
Maybe a joke of some kind that would be specific to that particular context, you know.
And then,
So-
I oftentimes thought about this speaking in South Africa.
Yes, and we, you know, the unfortunate thing, Carlette, about it is that English is becoming their primary
I
language.
know.
And so,
I don't want to see culture disappear. You know,
exactly. So that's why you always want to be exposed to something cultural, because
Right.
otherwise it's like being in America.
I know.
You know?
I was showing my mom and my brother some pictures, and I was like, they look just like us. You know, and I was disappointed.
Yes.
Not that I'm disappointed in the way we look, but you want to see them.
You wanna
want
see
South
them.
Africa. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Go ahead.
see why, I watch Joyce Myers, and when she go to different countries, and I've noticed that she will dress in their custom.
Okay.
You know, when she's up on the podium,
Yes.
whenever she leaves the country, she will dress in their custom. She doesn't wear American clothes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Well,
that,
she dresses in there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh.
yes, I've seen that Joyce will dress when she's somewhere else
Yes.
in their attire.
Is
And,
That's
and I wondered why.
That's
but
why.
That's why, to make that connection.
That's to make that connection, to create a bond. It's called
Identity.
identification.
Okay.
Yes. What were you saying, Betty? There was something you wanted to write, or something you thought you should.
No, I didn't think you had to turn the assignment in.
Oh, we do it every week.
No, okay. No, but in it, it says discuss.
Yeah.
Well, we always discuss our assignments.
From your perspective.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I heard.
Okay.
That's what I understood. I'm gonna turn it in.
No problem.
This is the receptor. You know,
Yeah.
this is the way she got what was presented to her.
That's how she concluded the meeting.
So, yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
what it was is, no, that's not the way, I'm not making excuses for me. This week was just terrible.
Okay.
But it was good too.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now, here's the last thing we're going to cover. I'm going to ask that you skip over to page number 101, and it's called demographic analysis. This is important, and you'll see that there are subcategories of demographics. I'm going to ask that you highlight the margin on page 101, demographic audience analysis. What is a demographic audience analysis? Audience analysis that focuses on demographic factors such as age, gender, religion, sexual orientation, group membership, and racial, ethnic, or cultural background. That is what we refer to when we refer to demographics. I'm going to ask that you put this in your notes. The term demographics should be added to your vocabulary. The term demographic. You can add an S to it. Demographics, all right, or the term demographic in itself. Carlette does not mean one thing. Whenever you say demographic, you're talking about many things associated with that audience, okay? And so it's important that we understand our demographic, because it's going to say something about, look at page 102, highlighted age, gender. Page 103, religion. 104, sexual orientation. And at the bottom of 104, racial, ethnic, and cultural background. Okay? So those are aspects of your demographic. Now, we're already planning our total family conference in November because I'm going to be launching our MICA regional service in November. And one of the speakers, a spiritual son of mine, happened to be Bishop PG's son. His assignment for the conference in Chicago was to address why is it important for teenagers and our millennials to love God but dislike the church.
Wow.
That was his topic. Did you see some of it, Carla?
I saw, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had just heard something about that right before that. They
Okay.
put something about why I love God but hate the church.
Yes.
Was the quote that I saw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. And so the point is, his demographic, watch this now, dealt with a certain age group. Millennials are 18 to 35, depending on what study you do. It might say 34. Okay, but let's just say 18 to 35. You will have people who are made up of that demographic. Okay, and he was actually right about what he was saying regarding millennials. Okay, so the audience is dealing with a particular mindset. And so whatever audience you are addressing, you must know your demographics. All right? I know every Sunday when I get up to speak, I am going to have middle-aged, young adults, and I'm going to have seniors in the audience. That's a given. That's my demographic. Okay? So I have to find a way to reach them all. The point I'm making is that I had to evaluate Junior PG. I had to give a response. Okay? And so after his presentation, I am not a millennial. I am a baby boomer. That's a certain age group. Okay? And the reality is, new school needs old school, no matter what.
Yes.
No matter what. New school needs old school.
Just like the New Testament and the Old Testament.
Absolutely. You need them both.
Yes.
Okay? And so I was able to bring in a dynamic that I could teach millennials something from an old school perspective. Okay, so it's important that we understand that that's going on too. That in a public speech, you have a demographic that is already planned. But you have to know your demographic. That's why it's important to ask about who is going to be in the audience. Who am I speaking to? All right, questions?
No, but I do have a comment. Because
Yes.
You said that on Sunday mornings, you're speaking to different age groups.
Yes.
But as a pastor, preacher, y'all take it one step further because you're dealing with baby Christians,
Yes.
veterans.
That's true. Yeah, yes.
So you have all of that.
They have all of that involved, for sure.
Whereas somebody that's just a public speaker,
Right.
they're not dealing, they may not have to deal with the spiritual
The
side.
spiritual side.
But y'all have all of that.
We have all of that.
I'm
Exactly.
running from that pulpit.
How you doing, Paul?
And so
Yeah.
it's-
You have all of that.
Yeah.
Now, the last part of what I'm going to cover is a critical part, and it's on page 104, and that is sexual orientation. Okay, more and more we have to deal with that demographic. Okay, somehow when I was talking to the pastor and his wife that are Seventh-day Adventists who are looking at coming here, I had to address. You need to sit, Jimmy?
No, I just the people just everybody's there downstairs.
Okay, so the family's already here.
Yes, it's just like I thought it was at 2.
Well, the viewing started now. The service starts at 2. Yeah. Okay, so whenever I had to address the couple yesterday, I brought up the fact that I, a few years ago, had to speak on gun violence in Los Angeles, and my topic was Grace and Guns. You can find it on YouTube. Okay. And the largest percentage of suicides is among the LGBT community. The gay, lesbian community. And what we have to understand today in our demographics, Jane, is that there's more gay and lesbian youth than we've ever had.
Yes, it is.
Okay? So that's a part of the demographic. Sexual orientation becomes a major factor. And of course, the spiritual aspect of it as well. All right? So we're going to conclude with that. If you haven't read it, please look at page 106, situational audience analysis, because every situation is different. If you look at that page, you'll see size, physical setting. See that?
Yes.
Okay. So you're dealing with a lot of things. We're moving the conference in Chicago next year to a different venue. It's still going to be in Chicago, but it's not going to be at the Chief Apostles Church for this reason. For the audience situational analysis purpose. Because the auditorium we use can seat 2,000 or 3,000. Okay? The church where we meet for the Micah conference can seat 2,000 or 3,000. I'm just putting that out.
Right.
All right? But at a given service, we might have 500.
Okay.
So it would look better to have that service in a smaller venue.
Yes. Yes.
Because in that sense, psychologically, it sends a message. We had a lot of people in attendance, but you wouldn't think so.
Right.
It's good to have back.
Exactly. You see. All right. So situational audience analysis is important to public speaking. So if you were giving your speech to the class, and suppose I would invite members of the congregation. Now you have a demographic issue, right?
Right.
And you have a situational audience analysis situation. And suppose I didn't tell you
Oh, no.
that your audience would be mixed. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes that's going to happen. You're going to find out that that's a demographic you did not expect.
Right.
That's true.
You see my
People
point?
can invite other people.
They can invite other people, you never know.
See,
All
that's
right.
how I ended up at the bishop's ordination. My sister invited me. And that's
Exactly.
how I ended up here.
Look at that.
And years ago we went to a gospel play at the Hyman Center.
Yes.
And I was in the lobby and I was early waiting for a group of women that I was with at my job, my supervisor and some other people. And so this guy walked up to me, he was like, would you like to be in the play? We have a scene where we need some females in the play, whatever. And I was like, get away from me. Just like that. Because I really thought he was joking. He was like, no, I'm serious. Whatever. So I said, yeah, okay. So he put my name down, and I didn't believe him. I just wanted him to get away from me. And then I'm standing up and I'm looking, and I saw him go to some other females and right now I'm like, well, this must really be true. So then I saw this other girl, and I was like, is that true? So she said, yes. I said, okay. So he had told us when to meet them backstage. After this scene, I need y'all to meet me backstage.
Yes.
So the rest of the group came in. I told them what happened, and they were like, well, how did you do that? I don't want to do it. I'm like, well, sorry. No, I should have got here early. Well, anyway, we sitting down in the play. Then I had to get up to go backstage to get ready for the scene we had to do. But before we went, my supervisor told me, she said, I have to tell you something. She said, but I'll tell you after, you know, you're done up there on stage. So I said, okay, so after we were done, when I came back, she said, Reggie, talking about Chief Reggie.
Yeah.
She said, but he was only a detective at the time. She said, oh, Reggie and Todd and such are here from the PD. I could have fell down.
I
But
bet.
she said, but I didn't want to tell you before because I knew you would be nervous.
Yes.
But that's the unexpected, like you said.
That's the situational analysis.
Yes, and I
audience.
didn't know when we got back in the lobby, like for, what you call that again? Whatever the birthday union.
Intermission.
Intermission, yeah.
Mhm.
We were by the concession stand, and a lot of people from St. Martinville was coming and saying, how did you get to be in the place? I didn't even know they were there. So you never know.
You never
I'm
know.
thinking, I know about this, I work in Lafayette, I had no idea I would see so many people that I knew.
Sure.
But you never know who will show up like that.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, well, this has been a good class. Did you enjoy the audience aspect? All right, let's pray. Father, we give you thanks and praise once again for what we're learning about public speaking. We look with anticipation, Lord, to all of what's going to happen as a result of learning about public speaking. We acknowledge, Lord, our dependency upon you, and we again thank you, Lord, that we're getting better at understanding this particular topic. We give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, we are done, and we'll have one more session. We'll look forward to that. I did give you an assignment.